Alright, man, let's talk about Dricus du Plessis because, man, I think it's time we start giving him his flowers. Everybody, and I mean everybody, said he lost the first fight. And yeah, it was razor close. And it was a back and forth, razor thin war. But no matter where you stood on that one, the rematch, that was a masterclass from Dricus du Plessis. Once again, Dricus gets it done. I don't know how he keeps doing it, but he keeps winning. He outclassed Sean Strickland, outworked him, and in my book, he won all 5 rounds. Round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And honestly, you can even make an argument for round 3 for Sean Strickland if you want to be generous. You could score it 4-1, but still, it was domination, you know? And the biggest thing that happened here is that Dricus leveled up. He looked way cleaner, way sharper. He wasn't doing as much of that awkward blitzing wild stuff, you know? No more Captain Underpants type of rush. He actually stuck to a solid game plan. He was chopping the legs, going to the body, mixing in head kicks, and landing with a lot of them. Alright, I gotta bring this up because nobody's really talking about it. Dricus is seriously underrated when it comes to his game planning. Look at his fights, man. Against Robert Whittaker, he countered the blitz perfectly, using his jab to intercept and shut it down. Against Sean Strickland, he leaned heavily on kicks, chopping the legs, going to the body, mixing in head kicks. And against Izzy, he straight up imposed his will, using the threat of the takedown to keep Adesanya from ever getting too comfortable. Dricus isn't some wild brawler. He adjusts to his opponents, finds the holes in their games, and exploit them. That's a dangerous skill set right there. And honestly, this fight kind of played out almost exactly how I expected it to. Just a little more dominant than I thought. I figured it would be close, but Dricus was just on another gear. The dude is a problem, and you know what? I've been saying this for weeks. Sean Strickland is very susceptible to body shots and leg kicks, and before this fight, I saw a lot of people coping hard in my comment section, trying to tell me that in the first fight, Sean was checking all the leg kicks, and I'm like sitting there like, what are you guys even talking about? Then the rematch happens, and boom, point proven. Now, to be fair, Sean is good at checking kicks and blocking body shots when he's applying pressure. But that's the thing, Dricus doesn't let him do that. He's always the one pushing forward, keeping Sean on the back foot. So just like in the first fight, I knew Sean was going to be open for those shots. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Now, with that being said, let's talk about Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis 2. Let's break it down because, man, this was a statement performance from Dricus. A lot of people thought Sean Strickland's pressure and jab would break him down over the 5 rounds. But Dricus came in with a perfect game plan and straight up outclassed him. Right out of the gate, Dricus was all about leg kicks and body kicks. He wasn't rushing like a madman, he was calculated, patient, and chipping away at Strickland's lead leg. And that was the key. We've seen this before, that Strickland doesn't like dealing with leg kicks, and Dricus made sure to remind him of that early. Sean, as expected, was working behind the jab, trying to keep Dricus at bay, but the difference this time was that Dricus wasn't just standing in front of him. He was mixing in movements, picking his shots, and forcing Sean to react instead of dictating the pace. And that's the thing, if Sean can't march forward comfortably, his whole game starts falling apart. By the end of the first round, you could already see him hesitating to step in as much. Now, in the second round, Dricus turned it up a notch. More leg kicks, more body kicks, and then boom, he landed a massive head kick. And let's be real, Strickland's got a chin, but you could see that shot got his attention. It didn't drop him, but it was one of those moments where you can tell he wasn't expecting it. Meanwhile, Dricus was still pressuring forward, still outworking him, still landing the bigger shots. At this point, Sean was trying to adjust, but Dricus was already a step ahead. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, Sean's got to adjust. He's got to step it up the later rounds, right? Because usually in these kinds of fights, Sean starts building momentum as it goes on. He gets more aggressive, starts doubling the jab, starts teeping, and just wear guys down over time. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, round 3 and 4, this is where it's going to be competitive. This is where Sean's going to turn it up. But he kind of didn't. Because in the third round, this is where Sean Strickland started showing some life. He finally started pushing forward a bit more, landing some good jabs and right hands, probably the most competitive round of the fight. But even then, Dricus was landing the heavier shots. He even cracked Sean with a spinning elbow at one point, just throwing it in a new look, keeping Sean guessing. If you wanted to give a round to Strickland, this would be the one, but it was still super close. Alright, so by this point, In the fight, I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting there like, yeah, this is pretty much over. Like, dude, Dricus just won 3 rounds. He landed the harder shots, controlling the pace, and I'm pretty sure he's up at 3-0 at this point. And even if Sean somehow upped his volume and had a strong 4th and 5th round, I just didn't see a way he could turn this around. Like, what's he gonna do? He's not finishing Dricus. That dude is tough, too durable. So the only way Sean was going to win this is either that he gets a 10-8 round for both rounds or somehow stops him. And let's be real, that's just not happening. At this point, the fight was just slipping away from Strickland, and you can see it. Dricus had all the momentum. Unless something crazy happened, this was his fight to lose. In the 4th round, and this is where everything really fell apart for Sean, Dricus landed a huge right that broke Strickland's nose. And from that moment on, it was clear that Sean was in survival mode. The blood was pouring, and you could tell he wasn't as confident stepping forward anymore. And Dricus, he smelled blood and went to work. He kept the pace high, landing big combos, elbows in the clinch, and just overall making Sean's night miserable. At this point, I just didn't see any way Sean was really coming back. There was no life in him, no real adjustments, nothing. His coach were yelling at him the entire fight, telling him to go forward, be more aggressive, land a heavier jab, try to make Dricus miss and counter, but he just wasn't doing it. By the 4th round, he wasn't even fighting to win anymore. He was just trying to survive, and that's when I knew 100% he was cooked. I know I said earlier that I thought he was done, but now I knew he was completely broken. He looked mentally checked out, like the fight had been beaten out of him. At that point, it was just a matter of getting to the final bell. 5th round. At this point, Strickland looked pretty much done. He's exhausted, busted up, barely throwing anything with real power. Meanwhile, Dricus is still walking him down, throwing head kicks, body kicks, just picking him apart. You could see that confidence in Dricus now. He knew he had the fight in the bag, and he was just putting the exclamation mark on it. At the end of it, there was no debate. Dricus dominated this fight, 4 rounds to 1, maybe even a clean sweep. The biggest thing was that he just had more tools. Sean had that jab and pressure, but Dricus had the kicks, the counters, the power, the cardio, everything. He fought smart, took away Sean's usual game, and showed why he's a legit problem in the division. Alright, so if you ask me, Sean Strickland just got exposed. I mean, let's be real, Dricus just gave everyone the blueprint to beat him now. And it's actually pretty simple. Push him back, target the legs, attack the body, and don't try to outbox him in a straight up boxing fight. That's it, because when Sean can't dictate the pace, can't march forward behind his jab, and can't put you on the back foot, he's way less effective. And now, a lot of fighters are going to see this and try to replicate it. If you got a solid leg kick, good body work, and the ability to take a punch, you've got a real shot at beating Sean Strickland. His defense on top has always been good. It's hard to hit his head, but if you mix it up, go to the legs, to the body, to the head, then he struggles. He also struggles where he can't bully his opponents forward, and honestly, he needs to make some serious adjustments. He's got to get better at checking leg kicks, dealing with pressure, and making opponents pay when they try to walk him down. Right now, if you pressure Sean and go to the legs and the body, he'll just absorb the damage instead of countering effectively. That has to change. If he doesn't adapt, he's going to have a real tough time staying at top. Now, with that being said, I think it's safe to say at this point, Dricus du Plessis is one of the greatest middleweights of all time, and honestly, I don't even think that's a hot take anymore. I mean, just look at his resume: Darren Till, Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland twice, and Israel Adesanya. That's a crazy list of names. And now, it looks like he's going to fight Hamzat. And let me just say this, if he beats Hamzat, man, he's ahead of Anderson Silva and Izzy in terms of being the greatest middleweight of all time. Yeah, I said it, because listen, I don't care how many title defenses Silva's had, a lot of guys he beat wouldn't last in today's division. A bunch of his wins haven't aged well, and that's just the reality. I know we got people like the Weasel hyping up Silva, but I'm not going to dance around it. I just call it how I see it. And right now, the middleweight division is better than it's ever been. Now, let's talk about Dricus versus Hamzat, because that has to be next. That's the fight everyone wants to see. Who do I think wins? Honestly, I don't know, because let's be real, people are kind of overhyping Hamzat's win over Robert Whittaker. Yeah, he looked great. He looked good early, but Whittaker's jaw was compromised going into that fight, and Hamzat never actually locked in that choke. So who's to say if Rob survived the first round, the fight would have gone the other way, because we all know that Hamzat has the cardio issue. And if Dricus survives that first round, what's stopping him from running through Hamzat? Let's not forget, Dricus is a huge middleweight. If Hamzat slows down, Dricus is going to drown him. Now, as for Strickland, I think it's pretty simple. Give us Izzy versus Strickland 2. Make it a co-main event for a pay-per-view. Make it a fight night headliner. Whatever. Just book it. And honestly, that fight is way more interesting now. Say what you want about Izzy's last 3 performance. He actually looked really damn good in his last fight before he got caught. And let's be real, Strickland doesn't have that kind of one-punch knockout power. Plus, we've seen Izzy getting more aggressive in his last couple of fights. He's not going to just back up and try to outpoint Strickland again. I think Izzy saw some openings that Dricus exposed and might actually be able to capitalize on them. And I'd love to see that fight. But those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.